got it, no big deal. Just go ahead and fire up your review problems and just get your grind going. If you want to hang out and listen, that's fine too. So the idea here is, how do you go and correct an error, right? Like you found a mistake either in your ledger or in your journal, and how do you kind of go ahead and fix that? So if it's a journal, so it says an incorrect journal entry should be corrected with an additional entry called a correcting entry. So in this case, a memorandum is prepared as the source document describing the correction to be made. So if we look at that memo, it says a cash payment of $1,200 or $120 for advertising was debited in error to a miscellaneous expense. So we just put it in the wrong account, basically. So here's our guy. We had this advertising expense of $120, a miscellaneous expense. So we're adding a debit of $120 to the advertising, and we're crediting back the miscellaneous expense $120, which is where we placed that debit incorrectly. So that's kind of what it looks like. So it's a two-liner if you're going to make a correction. So it's dated on the date of the discovery. The memorandum is our document number, and it just indicates like, oh, we're moving this, we're crediting this account for the mistake in debit, and then we're adding the debit in the correct place. Pretty okay? And I think, again, typically when you do a two-column or you do the debit line, or two rows, you do a debit first and a credit second. So again, date, debit, credit, source doc. So, hi, Miss Lytle. So what happens if you have an error in your ledger? You put the wrong, you put the transaction into the wrong account, right? So here, we shouldn't have put this $100 debit into prepaid insurance. Instead, it should have gone into supplies. So what we'll do is we just draw a line through the incorrect entry, and then we put it in the correct spot. And again, update your account balance after you put the corrected one in. Notice we don't have to update an account balance when we cross out, because the account balance is just the previous active balance, right? If I look at the prepaid insurance, we cross this out, and the correct balance is just the $325, what it was previous to the correction. I feel okay? So what do we do if it's instead the error in our ledger is we wrote down the wrong number instead of putting it in the wrong spot? Here we wrote down the wrong number entirely. So we wrote 450 instead of 45. So we draw a line through the incorrect amount. We write the correct amount just above it, and then we recalculate our account balances. Yes. And it doesn't matter whether it was a credit. Oh, this is, this is an example of we put it in the wrong column, right? So here we posted as a credit, should have been a debit. So same idea, we'll cross out the credit, we'll write it in the correct spot, and then recalculate our account balance. So that's the gist of it. There's kind of three different mistakes we talked about, right? A mistake to the journal, where we do a offsetting transaction and then write the correct transaction. There's there's mistakes in our ledger where we put the transaction to the wrong account. There's transactions where we write down the wrong number, and then there's a transaction where we write down the right number, but we put it in the wrong spot, but still in the correct account, or the types of errors that we discussed here. So what is a correcting entry? Well, that's what we did in the journal, right? Where we use that journal entry to correct an error. When is a correcting entry necessary? Well, basically anytime you've made a mistake, right? Either you've improperly journalized it or improperly posted to the ledger. The 3 steps in correcting an incorrect amount posted to an account. So you cross out the incorrect amount, write the correct amount above it, and then recalculate your balance. And the 3 steps for correcting an amount posted to the incorrect column. You cross out the incorrect amount, record the correct amount in the correct column, and then recalculate the balance. So if we looked at the 4-4 work together, and we wanted to take a look at that. So it says, journalize each correcting entry discovered during December of the current year. Use page 21 of the journal. If there is no value to be entered in a specific field or the value of an item is not relevant, leave it blank. So our 2 error transactions, it says, discovered that a transaction for supplies bought last month was journalized and posted in error as a debit to prepaid insurance instead of supplies, $75. And then the other one says, discovered that a transaction for the rent expense for last month was journalized and posted in error as a debit to the repair expense instead of rent expense, $900. So okay, I did this already apparently.
I do know the page number here.
It told you in the problem.
Oh, yeah, use page.
Yeah, so it says use page 21 of the journal. So let's look at the first transaction. So we'll date this December 1. And it says that we bought supplies, but we debited to prepaid insurance instead of supplies. So the debit transaction should come first. We used memorandum 15, and supply should have been a debit of $75. And then prepaid insurance should then be credited the $75 to offset the debit that was put there incorrectly. So if we check our answer there, that looks good. And then it says we discovered a rent expense was posted in error as a debit to repair expense. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is do the debit half. So that was memorandum 16 to rent expense. That was $900. And then repair expense should be credited $900. And then it says it was also discovered that 2 posting errors were made in the owner's drawing account. The November 15th entry should have been $540. The November 30th entry should have included a debit to the drawing account for $400 that was posted in error as a credit. The general ledger for Art Stevenson drawing account is provided in question assets. Determine what amount should be entered in each lettered cell. If a cell should have 0 balance, just leave it blank. Okay, let's just check that. Great. Now if I go up here to my general ledger, that is the November 15th transactions that they're talking about. So it says the November 15th entry should have been $450. Okay, so that should be $450. And that means that nothing was added to the credit or to the credit column, but my new account total in the debit piece should have been $540. And then it says on November 30th, the entry included a debit to the drawing account for $400 that was posted in error as a credit. So E should have been 400. F should be 0. And then my debit now should be 540 plus 400. So that should be 940.
What is E? No, 3 years. I just want to be sure.
E is 400. Because it tells us in the question that the November 30th entry included a debit to the drawing account for $400 that was posted in error as a credit. So basically, I'm moving that $400 from the credit column to the debit column. Marcelino?
Why is it 940?
Because 540 is my new total, and then I'm adding 400 to that. If I check my answers, that all looks good. Does that feel okay, everybody? Walking through this one. So again, if you haven't done the 4-4 work together on your own in application, obviously you should do that. The review problems you should start on today. So again, study guide part 1, 2, 3, and 4. The application mastery challenge and source documents problem. Again, while you're doing that, you should pay attention to the test format that I talked about. So like when it comes to naming and numbering accounts, you should take special care to make sure you understand how to do that, like what the little oopsies are, not just like, oh, okay, I got it right, but like, why did you get it wrong before and why is it right afterwards you fixed it? And then these, transferring your journal to a ledger or making a correction inside, I think are all things that are right for, like the applied test question. Everybody cool? All right, I'm gonna get out of your way and let you guys have at it. Sound good? If you get stuck on anything or have questions, let me know. Some of you guys have gotten real far behind on the work submissions. So keep an eye on kind of where you're at. I try every class the following day to like go through and check and update my Notre Dame. So if you're seeing stuff popping as missing or incomplete or whatever, like should be relatively easy to see what it is. If that's you and you're behind, like take some time and try to get caught up here in the next, next several days. I would focus on the chapter 4 stuff first. If you still have chapter 3 stuff outstanding, I would just kick the can on that until you've gotten through the test. And worry about the chapter 4 stuff for right now. But if you have old chapter 3 things, like we got to get that stuff caught up and figured out. When you do that, if you do some of these homeworks that are missing or incomplete, make sure you email me afterwards so I know to go back and look for them to update them. Everybody cool? Okay.